The signing is between the Secretary General of the Caribbean Community and the Chairman of the CARICOM Private Sector Organization. I speak of Ambassador Erwin LaRocque and Mr. Gervais Warner, who is Chairman of the CPSO and President and CEO of the Massey Group. Our short ceremony this morning will begin with statements from both the Chairman of the CPSO, who will be followed by the Secretary General. I invite Mr. Warner to make his remarks.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are here today at this ceremony to execute the Memorandum of Understanding between the Caribbean Community and the CARICOM Private Sector Organization, Incorporated, concerning cooperation towards the full implementation of the CARICOM single market and economy between the Caribbean Community and the CARICOM Private Sector Organization, better known as the CPSO, that will establish the legal framework for cooperation and collaboration between these two bodies, as mandated by the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community. The Council of the CPSO has duly authorized me to sign the MOU on its behalf in my capacity as the Chairman of the CPSO. I am indeed honored to have been accorded the opportunity to participate in this brief ceremony, but important ceremony this morning. CPSO is pleased to have been designated by the heads of government of the Caribbean Community as an associate institution of the Caribbean Community, in accordance with Article 22 of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. We look forward to using Article 22 designation and the access to the organs and bodies and committees of the community that it facilitates to achieve the laudable purpose for which it is intended. The text of the MOU is, in our minds, uncontroversial. It contains 12 articles. Article 1 states the objectives of the memorandum. Article 2 covers the scope of cooperation envisaged by the MOU. Article 3 identifies the principles reinforcing cooperation. Article 4 deals with participation of members of the CPSO. Article 5 sets out the obligations of the Caribbean community in light of this participation. Article 6 states the obligation of the CPSO to work with the member states and labor towards full implementation of the CSME. Article 7 deals with the establishment of the joint technical team, while Article 8 addresses the appointment of working groups. And finally, Articles 9 through 12 cover the final clauses dealing respectively with amendment, confidentiality, entry into effect and duration, and dispute resolution. Uncontroversial though the text of the MOU may be, it is, however, important that the parties, as well as those representatives who will be charged with the responsibility to implement the MOU, are thoroughly proficient in the new rules established in the MOU, if we are to avoid any unnecessary differences arising in the course of our work together. We are confident that the goodwill that has been engendered in the cooperation fostered and the resources applied to the fulfillment of the objective of the MOU, we believe set us unmistakably on the path of accelerated development for our region, and in particular towards the achievement of the goal of full implementation of the CSME. In closing, I really would like to thank the head of the interim secretariat of the CPSO, Dr. Patrick Antoine, and his full team. We have Karima also present with us here in the room, for their care and diligence that has resulted in the quick finalization of the text of this MOU. I also would like to thank the Secretary General and his team for their care and diligence that went into this process. I believe this might be one of the record timeframes in which an MOU with an organization, an associate organization, has been signed. So thank you all very much for your work and urgency with which this has been treated. The quality of this document, the quickness with which it has been made ready for signature augurs very well for the eventual success of our joint project of cooperation, collaboration in the pursuit of full implementation of the CSME. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary General, all those in attendance, representatives of intergovernmental organizations, representatives of civil society and media, thank you very much for affording us this opportunity to officially join the CARICOM as an associate member. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warner. And before I ask the Secretary General to respond, I want to acknowledge the presence of members of the private sector, members of the CARICOM team here at the CARICOM Secretariat, who are all witnessing this momentous occasion. I will now ask the Secretary General, Ambassador Erwin LaRocque, to address you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Gervais Warner, someone who I've come to know very well in the past year and a half through various means. Other chairman of the board of the CARICOM private sector organization, and I do stress CARICOM, this is a very meaningful name, and other members of the board of directors of the CPSO. I also want to recognize, of course, my own staff, Mr. Joseph Cox, Assistant Secretary General for Trade and Economic Integration, and I know Colita is on board, my General Counsel, Dr. Colita Bab Schaefer, and of course, I see my old friend and colleague in the background, Dr. Patrick Antoine, and other members of staff of the Secretariat of the CPSO. Today is indeed a very important date. I have labored long and hard since my association with integration arrangements in trying to achieve a formal arrangement between the private sector and the Caribbean community. We've always known, and it is enshrined in the treaty provides a framework, a legal and administrative framework to create a single market and economy. But it is the stakeholders who will make it a reality. The private sector who will be able to take advantage of it to the extent that we provide the means for which they can do so. It is our citizens who can take advantage of it in terms of the free movement of skills. And that would include, of course, our labor partners and other stakeholders. We've always known that for the CSME to be a success, we need an arrangement of inclusion with the private sector. I have been on public record saying so. And we have had efforts at the past, what I would call maybe false starts in the past. But in December 2018, at a special meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government, in reviewing the status of the CSME, it was determined that we needed to have a formal, structured arrangement for engagement with the private sector, with labor, and with civil society. And at the upfront, I want to credit Prime Minister Mia Mottley, the lead head of government for the CSME, and my dear friend, Mr. Gervais Warner, who stepped to the crease with his colleagues, of course, and took up the challenge soon thereafter that meeting. A series of engagements took place, and here we are today. To be exact, in October of this year, the CPSO was conferred the status of an associate institution and agreed to by the heads of government that it be named CARICOM to give it the clear understanding it is the apex institution. We are very much aware and satisfied that the CPSO went through a comprehensive process of consultation with regional private sector organizations, both at the national level, at the regional level, and that we're very satisfied that the CPSO is a truly representative body of the private sector. So here we are today, and although we are signing the MOU now, I want to say that the engagements have started. Already, the CPSO finds itself on members or committees that we have established. The Committee on Mergers and Acquisitions Policy, the E-Commerce Committee, the Committee on Front of Label Packaging, the Subcommittee on the Food Security Plan, the CET and Rules of Origin Review Committee, and of course, the CPSO will sit on another committee we're about to establish, if it has not yet already been established, on regional trade facilitation. And I'm sure there'll be many others. I witnessed just last week the CPSO's engagement at the quoted meeting, which I attended part of, and they were very, very ably represented, and interventions were made at the appropriate junctures. I think Mr. Warren has already singled out the purpose and the various articles of the MOU. I want to single out two of them in particular. One, it gives observer status to the CPSO at meetings of organs and bodies of the community on matters related to the CSME. Two, it creates a follow-up mechanism, which is so important in our region, a mechanism of establishing a joint committee, technical committee at the technical level, that will be led by the secretariat, the two secretariats' technical teams. They are mandated to meet quarterly so that we can keep the program of work in full sight and review and report back to our respective to their respective principals, namely the chair of the CPSO and yours truly, and subsequently on to the heads of government. It also establishes working groups where you need to take a deep dive into the technical aspects of the work. I want to recognize as well the CPSO's submission of a very important document and a challenge that was given to the CPSO to look at the significant food import bill into our region. And the CPSO got to it and submitted a document entitled 25 by 2025, and it lists priority areas for investment. That forms a broad blueprint, and I believe, Mr. Chairman, that if it's not already being discussed in the Food Security Committee, we need to look at it because we need to tease it out. I believe there are some 13 or 14 broad recommendations in the document. We need to tease it out and put it into an implementable plan of action. And I think that should be one of our first charges to our respective secretariats to get the work started, if it has not yet already been started, in that regard. The CPSO also submitted to us, which we welcomed, a risk assessment on how to reopen the economies in this very difficult time of COVID, which was disseminated to all member states. And I'm sure it is being used as and when necessary. So, colleagues and members of the public and others who are joining us today, you can see that this is not just a piece of paper we're signing. It has already been placed into action. And I remain committed for as long as I am here during my tenure to ensure that the relationship between the CPSO and the CARICOM Secretariat and the CARICOM community grows from strength to strength. We cannot do it without the stakeholders. We cannot do it without the private sector. We cannot do it without labor. We cannot do it without civil society. And I give that pledge today. The Caribbean Congress, the private sector, the labor, we will be working on, I hope very soon, to see how we can enhance their relationship with us. But I must point out that the CPSO has also included the CCL in some of their discussions. And they were at the table jointly, along, at least in one instance, with the CPDF, the CPDC, I beg your pardon, my humblest apologies, so that we're trying to be as inclusive as possible in what we do and to put it on a framework that will take us forward. So I want to thank all, forgive me for being this long. I want to thank Gervais publicly again and his team, both at the level of the board and the council. I want to thank his team, his technical team at the back. And I want to give special praise and thanks to Prime Minister Mia Mottley, for giving the political impetus, the political direction to bring us to this day. And of course, to my own team, Joe Cox and Carlita and Desiree and others who worked over the past maybe 2 months to get this MOU to where we are today. Thank you very much. And I hand back over to you, Leonard.
Thank you, Secretary General. Now the main event will take place. I invite both parties, Mr. Warner and the Secretary General, to sign the agreement. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I will now ask if you could kindly hold up the agreement to the camera, the signed agreement to the camera. so that we can.
You're going to zoom this?
Yes.
I don't know. You can see. Jobez is closest to his camera than I am. You can't zoom this. No. Oh my! We have to. Trust me, I signed it.
I have a version that has your signature on it. So
precisely. A lot of activity was done to ensure that we got signed versions to each other. So we're only signing our version, and I'm very proud to show on the cover page. It is in bold letters, CARICOM, Private Sector Organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, SG.
Yeah.
And this, in essence, brings us to the end of the ceremony. I want to thank you all for participation, and to the people following online, and the general public who have been, and the media who have been listening in. I want to thank you for your participation and hope that this event is carried to the extent in the media that registers its importance to the community at this time. Thank you very much.